Okay, this is a an email slash video for Srinivas. What I wanted to go over was what I think may be the cause. I got your email about how no matter what you did, um, the label seems to only print 100 labels, and I was playing around with it myself here, and I had a really large value in there, and I think all it did was print 30,000 when I did this too. So let's just put this back to 100. And we'll just close that. Now, notice I was in the print dialog box when I got that, and that saves from the last time you printed, and that's the number of serial numbers. Um, Notice that, like, I believe this looks differently because we have a serialized field on this label. So controlling the quantity in the API and controlling the number of serialized labels may be different than what you're used to for quantity with the API. So let's close this and go into the other dialog box here. So if I go into the actual field here and go on to transforms, you'll see that this handles the incrementing. There's an option in here where the number of serial numbers, it's picking up the 100 from the print dialog box because that's the way it's been set. So this is an incrementing field, and I believe the number of serial numbers to print is being set by the print dialog, which normally isn't a problem when you're using bartender to print, because everybody would normally be just going into this screen to do the printing. But because you're doing the printing, they never get the opportunity to put in 30,000 here or something, or 10,000. So I think what we're going to need to do is in the API, you're going to have to pass a value for the quantity to print to a variable, and we'll say get quantity from a data source, set the data source. I've already created one, I think, earlier called quantity. Okay, that's just, it's not even a value on the, it's not even a field on the label corresponding to that. I just have a data source, a place to pass data to that has a data source name called QTY. So now the quantity to print, you can pass to that variable in the program and then go ahead and tell it to print. Now, I mentioned earlier in my emails that you're going to have to get more familiar in the API with how to handle a serialized field and quantities and getting the API to cooperate with this. So what I agree with, so I'm going to leave this label this way on Know How It's Computer. So it's set to use this to drive now the quantity of serial numbers to print. And I'll just say OK, close, and we'll save the label. Now when I go in the print dialog box, you can see that's grayed out because it's not going to take the quantity to print from that. So I think that you're going to have to get more familiar with how to work with things like this on your own. I'm not sure why it was working on your end and not, when you went to print here, but maybe you didn't. I don't know how you tested it on your end. So now let's just go ahead and create a new label. Well, let me do that. Hello. I think it's stopped me from having control of this computer. Okay. Finish. So if I add another, let's say it's a single line field, and we make this be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then if we go to print this, you can see the dialog looks different because there's no serialized field in the label. So you're probably passing to the API the number of copies to print, or a value that does take hold and place itself to control here. Okay, but in the label we're using, since it has an incrementing field, when you go to print this, the dialog box looks differently. So you're going to have to get more familiar with how to use the API, pass values maybe to the label if you want, or you can pass something directly to the number of serialized copies value in the dialog box, and then maybe you don't have to have this set the way I do. You could set it back to, use the print dialog box value. You can make it unnamed, but anyway, so you're gonna have to play around with it on your end to get more familiar with how to do this. But I think that's why you're struggling and you're not able to control the number of copies to print. Thanks. Bye-bye.